You can listen all you want, but unless you're going to get involved in an
feedback.
exercise, make your butt pucker, put your feet in the fire, and just so that you have to practice it.
Salon owners are some of the most amazing people on planet Earth. The only problem is sometimes their hearts are so big and they give so much of themselves to their staff and guests that it creates unintended consequences. Our goal is to change the industry by elevating the way the rest of the world sees salons, spas, and barbershops and give it the credibility that it truly deserves. This is the Salon Owner Evo Revo Show. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jason Everett hanging out with Doug Campbell as well as Sean Stearns. What's up, Sean?
What's up,
and
man?
Dude, there's another guy we got hanging out too,
What's up,
Mr.
guys?
Chris Baran. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Dude, good to have you on the podcast today. Today's episode is all about helping understand how do you get your staff trained, how do you impact your staff, how do you go deeply into educating your staff. Because I think, Chris, I joke about this sometimes that I tell people I invented a motivation pill that when you give it to your staff, it makes them do exactly what you want them to do when you ask them to do it the first time, right? Mm-hmm. People are like, how much is that pill?
Yeah, $8,000 a pill,
exactly.
And I'll buy it.
Right, but one of the things I think is really good for this episode is we're going to talk about how do you actually impact your staff and get them to learn things in a meaningful way, because that's what you're the pro at. So that's going to be today's episode. So if you're listening and you want help getting your staff to actually listen to what you're teaching, Chris is the guru master ninja of that skill. So Chris, good to have you on today, bro.
Well, thank you. And now I'm going to add guru master ninja to my business card.
Please put it on your Instagram page.
Yes. Yeah.
Super good. So good to have you on, man.
Thank
First
you.
of all, you and I have known each other for a really long time, but so people who are listening that may not know who you are, give them a little background of like what you've done, how long you've been in hair, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. By the youthfulness of my voice, you would never guess that I've been in the salon industry now for about 53 years.
That's crazy.
And I started when I was 4, for anybody doing the math. And but the point is I went through a long journey, and I always say this. First of all, the reason why I understand education so well is because who I was before I became an educated person. Because I literally, my background getting into it, my mother was a hairdresser. I literally started off hairdressing, and the only reason why I started in hairdressing was because I knew I couldn't get fired because my mom was the business owner. and I would party my brains out till 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd come in late, and quite frankly, if I would have been an owner, I wouldn't have wanted to hire me.
Yeah,
and
your mom did you solid.
Yeah, but she was too chicken to fire me. But the reality was I had a life-changing moment where somebody came in and said, Chris, don't cut my hair today. And I asked that obvious question, said why, and they said, I'm going to Montreal to get a good haircut, obviously Canadian.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mentally pulled the scissors out of the back of her head because I hated her. But the reality was I love that woman now because she changed my life.
Yeah, that was a good lesson.
It was either what do I have to do to find out what that Montreal haircut, and that's what I've been in search of for 53 years. I still don't know.
Still no clue.
I still don't know, but the point is what that got me hooked on, which I did not have before, was it got me hooked on a path of education.
Amazing.
And that's what I attribute a lot of what I have to do. I mean, there's right now, Redken, all the things on my other teachers, Blair, you, and all of the people that have helped me turn that from a want and a passion and a desire to make myself better, to learn that I was put on the face of the earth to be the best hairdresser that I could be. And when I finally got involved with your group, it made me understand and evolve me into I wanted to be, that I was put on the earth to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a teacher that helped people to change lives. So to give you a little bit of path on that, I went through about 40 years of doing hair. Let me take that back. It was probably about 20 years of doing hair, and I did for me. Everything was me.
Yeah.
And then I saw the path that how you could affect people who could affect our industry through that trickle-down effect. If you would help other people do and get to what they wanted to be, how you could help to change the industry for the better.
Totally.
And the reality was I learned as I went through that path and became a business owner and had salons, I realized that I started off with a small salon with my goal being that I wanted to educate my people to be the best that they could be because I wasn't getting it where I was.
Totally.
So what I did is I started on that path, but then I realized, wow, my salon wasn't making as much money as I wanted it to, so I had to spend more time with me doing more work to pay the bills, wasn't training my people, and now
Yeah, so you're working harder behind the chair and not making more money.
Exactly, and now they're not making money. They're not making money. I'm paying all the bills. I don't have time, nor the energy, nor whatever, or even the want at that time to do any education. So it had to be a major shift, and that's when I realized from that point, second huge lesson that I had in my life, that unless you spend the time away from the chair, helping people be better than what you are, regardless if your name is on the shingle outside your business or not,
Right.
that it's not about your name on the shingle. It's about what are you doing in that business to make better people that leave your salon, and what are you doing to train people within there. Now here's the catch that I learned. When I was just busy behind the chair doing hair to pay bills, I was losing staff. As soon as I stopped doing that and trained them so they were making money, and I made money, my staff stayed.
Yeah.
And so what I learned very quickly is the more that you can impact your hairdressers by helping them to become better at what they do so that they can earn more money, so they have a better life, then they attribute that back to you, that you're gonna stay for a longer period of time,
right.
And you are actually, that's where trust and loyalty starts to build in.
Well, and we talk about this on being on stage, right? Is if you get in your head, you're dead, and if you're focused on you, then you're not focused on the audience, right? As an educator. But one of the things I love about what you just said that was really crystallizing for me on that concept is that if you're focused on your behind the chair business, you're in your head, right? You're in that same spot. It's all about you, and when you focus on your team, then they stay, then that changes the culture and everything like that. So I want to ask you some questions, because today is all about, how do we transfer information to our staff in a way that does it? I think you've kind of already alluded to one about what's the intention. Is kind of what I'm getting, right?
Yeah.
Is that the intention's got to be there first, but what are some other things that are really critical for transferring information and training to your staff, in your opinion?
Well, here's what I would do. Because, a lot of what I do is I help educators to become better educators so they have less time, energy, and pain that they have to go to get to that point.
Yeah.
But here's one thing and this, whether you're educating from a stage or whether you're educating one-on-one and you're doing a class for 5 or 10 people in your salon, or whether you're doing it with an apprentice and it's a one-on-one coaching. To me, I think there's always there's months and months of training you can do here, but if I give you 3 quick things that I would do to get across, and we always talk about the 3 things that you have to do, A, B, C. And it's the ABCs of when you're training somebody. What are you doing to grab their attention so that they really want to be there and they're attentive? And then B is break it down. So how are you taking the lesson that you want to give, and how are you breaking it down so that you can actually get the message across? And then C is how are you closing out? And the closing out, everybody always assumes that it's a sale, and everything is a sale, as we know.
Closing out could just be a good, like leaving them with something really relevant.
Yeah,
right?
or it's as simple as, okay, now here's the lesson you've learned, and we'll go into there and then say, okay, now when you close it out, how do you close it out properly? And so we'll say, okay, before you close out anything, and whether you're on a stage or in front of a group or one person, we call it the arc. What are you doing? Questions. Before I get you to the most important part of my message,
right,
is there any questions? Now, the reason behind that is, if you get, the reality is say, if you're trying to close out and tell them what they have to do, or if you want them to either for your client or whatever to purchase something, and you say, here's what I'd like you to do, and you're starting to close, and they say, where'd you get the pink comb? Then the reality is, that's all they're focusing on right now. So you want to make sure you get, is there still any remaining questions that are out there? And then you say, so then you do your review, and you do your review of what we call your power of 3s, your 3 main points that you had in your breakdown. And then is your call to action. Here's my call to action, here's what I want you to do. So that might be for your apprentice. It would be, now what I want you to do before next week's class is I want you to have a mannequin or a client that comes in, and when you practice that 2 to 3 times. It might be, or it might be, if you've taught them something, then I want you to be able to teach this back to me one time this come week. So you have to then close that out. So that's the ABCs that we always talk about.
That's what I love about how you work, Chris, is you've got really simple explanations for something that most people make really complicated.
Yeah.
Sean, for you as a trainer, man, what does that do for you as you go in and do in salons, inside the salons that you work at, or other salons that you go to? How does that help you? What do you get from that?
Yeah, I think Chris is spot on, and I think we have to realize too, like as educators or coaches or any, just even working in the salon, training other people. I think we have to be very good at tuning in to where they're currently at as well, kind of see because I think we all come into as we grow up through experiences and through what people have said to us, past mentors, past teachers, I think we all establish like this limited capacity of like what we're capable of doing based on maybe what other people have told us or things that we've been taught. So like really as a teacher and a teacher and a leader, really get a good understanding of where they're at, what they believe they're capable of, and really like helping them, I would say, like raising that capacity for themselves, like being that driver that has higher expectations for them than what they do for themselves.
Yeah.
Doug, what about for you, man? And trying to get, as a salon owner, trying to get staff to really connect with a message, how does that apply to you, and what do you see when educators come in?
Well,
what do you want to know from Chris?
I think the thing that I like best about what Chris said was the close, because I think a lot of people forget about that, especially in salons.
It's the scariest part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, a lot of them don't realize that they have to do it.
It's the practice.
Right.
If you practice it, it becomes easy. That first time's always going to be scary.
Right.
Your brain's always going to tell you that it shouldn't. You know it's going to fail. They're not going to like me. It's all a thing. That's.
And if you're leaving them with something, I think that's part of the close. Rather, in our business, it's more of a sell, or rather, it's a close with the person you're training. This is what you need to take away. This is what you need to, because then it gives more purpose to what they've done. To your point, say, before we meet again, I want you to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So now it's all tied up with a bow, instead of like, okay, I learned, now I'm just floating around out there.
Yeah.
And we wonder why it didn't get anchored.
Yeah.
It's because they don't know that very simple part of that you need to close it. You need to anchor it out, put a nice little bow on it. So then it gives it a lot more meaning.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That's excellent.
You're welcome. Here's what I would say is one of the biggest things that I've learned along the way. Even some of my coaches that are at this table, it's always about leadership.
Wait, there's coaches at this table?
There's coaches at this table. Damn. But it's all about leadership. And the reality is that whatever you're teaching that person, that young kid that's starting off and working in your salon, is number one thing is, and I'm just going to pardon my language here, everybody's got a bullshit meter, and they can tell you, anybody's going to be able to tell you when and where if you're making stuff up. And the more that you can be authentic and tell your stories to your staff about, and the story might be about how you failed at something and so on. If the more that you can tell those stories to your people, the more that they feel that there's hope for them, because let's face it, we live in a pack society. Right? We know that the only way that we can get along with everybody in the world, the way we survive, is by being accepted by our community and the ones that we have with. And people are so afraid to make a mistake. And the more that you can tell,
they're not accepted at that
that's
point.
Right. You're not accepted. Right. You're not a part of Maslow's hierarchy beliefs of belonging. So if you can just let people know that it's okay, be authentic. And that's when they see you as a true leader, as opposed to when people say, look at me, here's what I do, I did this, I invented that. I mean, that's got my insecurity level that's going up, and all of a sudden I can say, you're insecure, now I feel weaker about myself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I know I've heard you talk too about, really associating with their pains, associating with their fears, letting them know you've been in the same place.
Yeah.
So I think it's great.
It's another quick think about this, is if you ever read a good book, and it's a page turner. And I can remember, you recommended a book on the FBI on interrogation for me. And I remember this. I went, oh God, this is going to be such a boring, bloody read.
It's called Never Split the Difference.
Yeah, and I was reading the book, and I went, this is going to be a painful read.
It was so good.
But it is so good because he told a story at the beginning of every chapter. So I want you to think about that. Every time you teach something, and if you're breaking it down into your ABCs, and let's say you've got 3 segments you're teaching, and every time you teach one segment, let's say you're going to teach something on head form, and then and you can start it off by what we call PAR, pain, associate, results. So, up to this point, have you ever had it where you've been cutting a head of hair and or even coloring a head of hair, and you don't get balance on one side? One side's great, the other one's not. Me too. That's happened to me. I've known that many, many times. It's actually cost me clients because they never came back. But here's the reality. I've discovered a 3-step approach that you can use to balance a head form, and that's what I want to share with you right now.
Right.
So
you already hit their pain. You already told them what you've struggled with.
You associated with it.
We solved it.
Yeah, and then there's the results. There's the results that you're going to get at the end. Right. And if people know, the biggest thing, people try to sell solutions as opposed to selling results. This is who you're going to be, do, or have at the end of this class. And if you can do that, then people really will buy into what you want to do, and they'll stick through you all the way to the class, and they'll be okay if you mumble or stutter or get something wrong.
And I think in the beginning, if you touch on the pain, that builds that connection. They see you as a real person and say, okay, it's a real person. It's not like it's God speaking to me. It's like, okay, I can get that. I think when you establish a connection up front, then they're bought into what you're giving.
When you're a human being.
Yeah, if you don't do that up front, then they're like, it's a disconnect.
Yeah,
So,
if you can enroll them right away.
Right.
If you can enroll, I mean, let's face it. If you're teaching in the salon one-on-one, you've probably built up some rapport.
Right.
But they still got to know what the class is about. They still got to know what
Your
you're going to be.
problem
What
was,
is this? And that comes
totally.
from just doing a few minutes of planning. You know what the haircut is. You know what the color is. You know the business tip or the consultation game. But what you're going to do is you've got to spend a few minutes just saying, how am I going to lead into what this is so that they're engaged and they want to listen to me rather than having to be there.
Right.
Totally. Yeah, well said, man. I mean, Chris, what are the biggest mistakes kind of going to that piece? Not that you've necessarily made, but like what are the, 'cause I know you've never made any, but what are the biggest mistakes that you see salon owners make? I mean, we talked about kind of like they don't establish the problem, they don't do all that. What about when they bring educators in salon in general? Are there things that they do before they bring the educators in? Because we're talking about the educators here as far as what they can do to be better. But what about for the salon owners? We have a lot of salon owners that have commissioned salons, multi-staff. What are some of the things that they can do to bring in world-class education inside their salon? How do they look for it? How do they pick? Because I think we were just at RAC together, right?
Yeah.
We're down here at ISSE right now, in case you heard all the noise and things that are going on here. But like when we were just at RAC, they said one of the things that happens now is people go, okay, what's the educator? Let me look at their Instagram page, and if they have enough followers, I'll bring them in. It's dangerous because that just means if they have followers, it doesn't mean it's going to be a great education event.
Right.
How can a salon owner pick somebody extraordinary to come in and do some education?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's a really interesting and pretty broad
It's a very,
topic.
well, you know me, I ask 45,000 questions to get one
one
answer, and
yeah.
you answer 45,000 questions with one question, so it's good. That's why we work so well. Buddy.
That's why I've often been introduced as this is Chris Baran, the man that can say in 10 words what other people can say in one.
There you go.
That's a talent.
You know what I would say? I think that first of all, the game has changed in the last. Ever since Instagram, the game has changed. And I think the trust factor is starting to go more to a 2D picture than a 3D picture.
Fair enough.
And not. I don't want to take anything away, believe me, from people that are powerful at their at
Sure.
Instagram and the message that you do,
one
because,
thing.
But I think that there's one thing that always rings true, as incredible and wonderful as it is to get information that is on the web, that you can sit in your PJs and get that. It's all great.
Yep.
But you can't get your questions answered.
Yeah.
So
If you
what
listen
do
to this podcast, you might not be able to get it answered. Sure.
What is the thing that you need from your salon? And sure, granted, and check it out that's there. But what I would also do is go back and take a look at and I'm not going to say go old school, but I'm going to say do your research.
Yeah.
Right.
Find out from other salons. If you've got friendly salons, you might have salons you hate. Don't go to them. But you have friendly salons that are around. Who's had some really great stuff that's going on? Take a look at what's going on around there. What is the class that you want?
Yeah.
And then I would also say that as soon as you find out what that person is, then have a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm. Actually talk to them as an educator.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid.
I think events
Yeah.
like this, when you come to those to network and say, who have you found that's got good results that your
check
staff
out the class at the
Yeah.
event.
especially if they have
sure.
a similar culture to you in that salon, there's an educator did well. So I think it's a both approach. I think you got to look at both. You can't just rely on one or the other. I think you need to look at both things and make sure it's the right fit for you.
And you've got great distributors out there, and if you can't make up your mind, find out who they are, who that fits in with you. And then I always think we've got, because I love, God bless, the commission salons. That was the background where I'm at. But there's a lot of independents that are out there right now, and they don't have either the points or the money or the time or the energy to bring in an artist that they can have, but there's also great education that you can have just that are still online.
Mm-hmm.
You can get an education online that you can get, and some that you might get for free, some that might have to pay for. You might have to have a coach that helps you along with what you do.
Yeah.
Those are important parts of what I do. I always think that it's interesting in having a conversation with one of our good friends, teachers, mentors, Blair Singer.
Yep.
And he was talking about the difference that there is in the education in the rest of the world versus America, the place that we love in, or we love in, live in.
Love in it too.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that one all alone. But, he was saying that, the rest of the world is used to really paying a larger amounts for education.
But
here, and we have this culture where it's either given away for free, etc. And I know that I believe, as you well know, that if I want to get better at what I do, I have to have a coach, and I pay for a coach. And to me, that's what I think that sometimes is missing, is what do you really need and want? And if you feel that you can't get it on your own, who can help you?
Right.
Totally.
It might be a mentor. It might be a mentor that's willing to help you along and do it for free. There might be somebody who's really knowledgeable that you can hire that can help you to get better at what you do and keep your mind right on track.
Totally well said. And Chris, for people that want to track you down and figure out how they can become better as educators, because I know you do some amazing programs. I know you're rocking your Chris Camp hat.
Yeah.
I know you guys do it. It's a 2-day retreat, right? It's a 2-day retreat. That you guys bring in educators. You bring in educators from school systems, from all types.
It's not brand oriented. It's really facilitation.
It's
education facilitation oriented.
Right.
So we have everything from school educators to we have salon owners that want to just be better at business meeting.
Right.
And also artists too.
And artists. We have stage. Well, everything that we build on is what we call the 3 S's.
Mm-hmm.
Salon, people who want to educate in a salon, people who want to educate in a school, and people who want to educate from stage.
Nice.
And and so we focus because it's still facilitation. It works for one and it works for 10,000. It's just know the difference between the two. So Chris Camp is really based on that. Yeah. And we have 2 a year that we go to, and it's a two-day program. Yeah. And we do also, part of that, we also have what we call our GPS. So for people that are really interested and really want to find home.
Committed to it.
Committed to it. So we have a year-long program where we have once-a-week meetings. And we have group meetings that we get together, and we have topics that we talk on. What do we need to learn? And then we have sessions that we coach them on. They coach back. They have to teach back to us. And that, to me, is the only way that you're going to get better at what you can do, because you can listen all you want. But unless you're going to get involved in an exercise, make your butt pucker, put your feet in the fire, just so that you have to practice it right in there in a pretend environment.
Yeah,
because it's harder to do in a pretend environment that is safe than it is actually once you practice it and get on stage. You go, hey, this is a breeze.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So we're really heavy into accountability.
Yeah. So they can check you out, get information on Chris Camp. You can go to Coach Chris Baran on Instagram, right?
Yeah, but you can go to.
How can people find you?
You can go to either you can go to just send it to chris@chrisbaran.com.
Chris@chrisbaran. I'll get straight to you.
BARAN.
Cool.
And then
you can
you can go to the website. You can go to trainersplaybook.com.
Oh, okay.
You can go to chrisbaran.com, and we've got an info line on there.
Nice.
And any of those things, or just at Coach Chris Baran.
Yeah,
Instagram.
on Facebook, Instagram, all the parties.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming down, sharing your insights. I mean, I love that you just have these little 3-nugget drop of information that's really helpful. And I think if you don't know Chris and you want to find out more about his programs, go check out what he does, because he takes, even though, like you said, you say one word in 10, you really masterfully on the other side break down something extremely complex and make it simple. I think that's how you're wired.
Totally. Yeah,
it's so good. Thank you so much for being on, for not only being on the show, but for being a good friend. I just really appreciate you guys, and appreciate you, and you guys for watching too. I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Do me a favor, subscribe to our podcast. Give it a review if you like this episode and you want to catch other episodes. Do me a favor and listen to some of the other great people we've had on our show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook page, anywhere you want to connect with us. You can pretty much connect with us and find us at High Performance Salon or at Salon Evolution Revolution. Chris, thank you so much for being here again.
Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Evo Revo podcast. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and you can always get more information, including show notes and the video episodes at evorevopodcast.com.